All right, welcome back to another episode of Just Buy Less Coffee, answering the deeper questions of American politics. My name is Troy, aka Keep Troy Blue. With me, as always, is Kathy Cannon, aka Cannon's Fodder. Irene Pretty is not on the show today. She is taking a sabbatical from the show. Irene is starting a new career and a new life, and kind of moving in a direction where she's very busy and had a lot going on all at once. So Irene will be taking a sabbatical from the show. I know we have a ton of Irene fans aren't going to love that news, but Irene will still remain part of our lineup. She should be back on ideally in a couple months. In the meantime, we will likely be bringing on guest third hosts every once in a while. Kathy and I are still going strong. You know, Kathy and I just can't quit each other on this podcast thing. But
you guys are just stuck with Kathy for a while. Sorry.
We'll probably be bringing on some old TikTok friends and some people that we respect in the TikTok, Instagram, and podcasting world to come on every once in a while to be guest thirds, because I like the three people vibe.
Troy likes three ways. That's what it is.
Yeah, I do. Yeah. It can't just be Kathy. I need another person.
Yeah, I'm not enough for anybody, obviously.
So yeah, Irene will be back on in a couple months. In the meantime, pay attention for some guests. My kid is home for the week, so you'll hear my kid playing in the background as we do this. We do this recording. It's Troy's turn to have distractions in the background.
Yeah. Well, don't worry, I still have distractions. My dog was just crying at a book cover that flapped him in the face. It's gonna be all kinds of adventures today.
Oh, it's just crazy. So how are you doing, Kathy, with all the craziness in the world? How's the school year going? How's the kids in Florida and all that?
Oh, well, fuck the kids. Okay, like I have given 2 midterm exams in the last week and a half because kids failed them both.
Oh gosh.
Well, I think what it is, like we went over and did like test corrections, and I think it was 2 things. One, they heard the word midterm, got in their heads about it, freaked themselves out, and oh, I forgot everything I ever learned, because they were doing the test corrections today, and I heard them yelling at themselves, like, I know that. How did I get it wrong? And I'm like, because I don't know. It's a good question. But other than that, it's fine. Work is work. It's teaching in Florida.
Yeah.
What it is.
Onslaught of fascism. Speaking of, it's election day. It's November kind of snuck up on us.
I know, right? Like, how did that happen?
Which means a couple of things. One, this was an off-year election, so there actually is some pretty important stuff going on today. We're going to get into it, but that also means that we're a year out from the next presidential election. So it's kind of scary. We've got one more year, and then we're probably Trump Biden once again. We're going to get into that a little bit.
This might be the last year of American democracy, kids.
Something about it feels final. I think this might be Trump's last chance. If he loses, I don't know that he's going to be running again in 4 years.
No, he's going to prison probably, remember?
Yeah. I don't know if Biden will be the nominee, to be honest with you. I'm not basing that on any polling. We're going to get into the polling in a minute. I'm not embracing the Biden should step down. He's too old. The polls are bad. Any of that. I don't believe in any of that shit, by the way. I think Biden should run. I think he should be the nominee. But I just weird signs, like Gavin Newsom is, taking trips with Biden and spending an inordinate amount of time with them and all this stuff. So there's just weird, I think Gavin Newsom's on as if something, in case of emergency, basically. Gavin Newsom's sort of a break glass in case of emergency type of situation.
I agree with that.
Which I'm not sure how that sits with Kamala, but who knows?
The fact that they're both from California is an interesting, addition to the.
Well, they know each other.
Yeah, that's what I mean, right? There's some internal shit probably, but whatever.
I don't know that they're the biggest fans of each other, but who knows?
But it's 2 big personalities. Big personalities tend to either take over the world or clash.
Well, Kamala would have to sort of willingly cede the heir apparent. I don't know if she's decided that she doesn't want to be president. I don't know. Who knows? It's all speculation, but it's just interesting that they seem to be prepping Gavin there to be an emergency backup. But So election day today, we got several races going on. We're recording this on Tuesday. The results will not be in before the end of the show, so we should discuss the results next week. But we got a lot going on today. We got legislative elections in Virginia. Democrats have a chance of taking over the state legislature there. We've got elections in Mississippi, governor election in Kentucky, and we have the Ohio issue 1, which is the constitutional right to have an abortion in the state of Ohio. So that's an interesting one. You had the election. Back in what was it, like August or something? June. I don't know. They tried to throw in this really
random one. Yeah.
The Republicans tried to throw in this really like shisty off election. And then that election was about preventing the one that's happening today. So that election was about keeping this off the ballot. And that went down in flames. That was like a 60-40. Ohio voters rejected that, including a lot of Republicans. So we have that was the measure to keep this measure from happening. So now we have the issue 1 on the ballot today in Ohio, which would enshrine the right to have an abortion in the Ohio state constitution. I think that one will pass. I think obviously they just voted on it a couple of months ago. I don't know if you have any different thoughts on that, if like some of the if maybe like people just didn't like the way Republicans handled the last one, or if it's just going to be kind of a similar vote. But
no, I think it'll turn out the same. Abortion on the ballot seems to be driving Democratic success in every single state, and that, I mean, the fact that they fought so hard to keep it off the ballot tells you they know the same. Right. Like what's her face? Ashley Moody down here is trying to keep it off Florida's ballot in 2024. And for the same reason, right? Because it's going to turn out the exact voters they don't need turning out. So I think Ohio is a pretty predictable one.
And abortion is just a losing issue for Republicans all the way around. They're finally like recognize that. And so they're trying to soften their tone on it, coming up with different branding. They're not pro-life anymore. They're pro-baby.
Yeah, except for feeding them, clothing them, giving them health care, right? Like pro-baby.
Mostly pro-fetus.
Mostly pro-future low labor worker or wage worker. That's what.
But at least they finally recognized it, with a handful of exceptions, like Tim Scott, who's just this like, who just cannot read a memo.
Yeah.
Even fucking Trump and DeSantis have realized that it's a shit issue for Republicans, and like even they're trying to soften it. But
well, Republicans writ large, yeah, they doubled down with their speaker choice, if you think about it. So that's I don't know.
That's a shit show.
Yeah, seriously.
Because that guy, Warren Gillian, I mean, oh my God, like he is everybody's like a weird Christian uncle who's like beating their wife.
My favorite take on them, it was on Twitter, not Twitter, whatever Twitter is now. They were calling him Duggars 2.0, and I died. And I died because like his wife has the same squeaky voice as Michelle Duggar. But also, even more funny, I don't know if you saw, because this, of course, is the headline that my kids caught, because I've got them keeping up with this stuff, because they're learning government. They're like, Miss, there's a new speaker. And I was like, yeah, I heard. And they're like, do you know him and his son monitor each other's porn? I'm like, we're in Florida. I can't talk about this shit with you. But I went and looked up the story because, of course, I did, because you can't hear that and not look it up, right? You have to. But they use this software called Covenant Eyes, which oddly enough is the same software that Anna Duggar put on Josh Duggar's computer, which is what the FBI used to catch him looking at all his kiddie porn and put him in prison.
I guess it worked.
But the other concern is that if this app is able to get like all of this information from your phone, right? He's the Speaker of the House.
Yeah.
He deals with top secret information that he's just sharing with his 17-year-old son who's trying to wank it, right? Like,
his son has access to everything on all of his devices.
That is what I am saying. So does this weird Christian app, right? So
exactly.
I think that should get some attention. Like, I understand we're all like a little curious about what his porn searches are, but I think we can all guess, because he talks a lot about choosing not to be gay, which means he definitely himself chose, finger quote, chose not to be gay.
Well, he has a hidden cell phone in his nightstand that's not connected to Covenant Eyes, where he gets his porn.
And so did Josh Duggar. Josh Duggar actually like installed the Linux operating system to buy it. Like, it was crazy. But anyway, so we have a Duggar as the Speaker of the House.
He is just everything. He is just every sort of creepy evangelical Christian. But yeah, monitoring each other's porn use.
Yeah, wild.
Us uncovenanted eyes, ostensibly, they're obviously not supposed to be using porn, but
Yeah, exactly.
it's weird. It's definitely weird. Like, why would you have your 17-year-old son be your porn accountability partner? That just seems very weird to me.
Porn accountability partner. The fact that that's a thing. But I think that's gonna. He got picked for Speaker, obviously, right? Because he was a nobody, and it was like, let's just get this done. This is fucking embarrassing, right?
Yeah.
But the more people learn about him, again, it's the same thing Republicans have been doing. The more we get to know about him, the scarier Republicans are. Like, this is the unanimous vote we got. Like,
well, they didn't vet him at all, and this is exactly like what's wrong with the Republican parties. They have like no organizational skill whatsoever, no leadership whatsoever
at all.
Like, fine, they went with this dark horse. Okay, everybody likes the guy because even Democrats like the guy. They don't like his policies, but they like the way he works with people. Apparently, he's very friendly and gets along with everybody. And that's kind of what people were looking for. But nobody vetted him. Nobody knew that he's talked for years about like supporting gay conversion therapy and criminalizing gay sex and wants the Congress to overturn marriage equality. He's second in line from the presidency now. I mean, this Gilead
Didn't his
guy.
wife like run a gay conversion camp?
So yeah.
Which was true of Mike Pence's wife too. So it's just like if Mike Pence and Jim Jordan had a bastard gay love child.
They're running up against these elections where the Republican Party is not polling well at all on these culture war issues like abortion and gay marriage and all this stuff. Aside from some very, very loud voices on the right, the American public wants nothing to do with this culture war bullshit. We're moving on. The Americans overwhelmingly care about the economy and now the state of the world. But they managed to just reignite those issues as they could have, attempted to move away from the culture war stuff. They selected a speaker who's basically nothing but culture wars, just right-wing Christo-fascism all the way. So it's basically totally reignited that for the Republicans as an issue. Because again, it's not inconsequential. I mean, this guy seems like a teddy bear, which is the thing that pisses me off most about him. Because I know a dozen evangelical Christian fathers that are just like that guy, not to mention the Duggars.
Yeah.
And you just know, I know how he treats his family. I know how he treats his wife. I know what's going on. And it's just creepy as fuck. And like I said, now he's second in line from the presidency and they didn't vet him at all. So
yeah. And I honestly believe that they're probably regretting putting him there. But again, they're not going to vacate another speaker, right? They have to ride this one out. Which means you're going to see them very uncomfortably doubling down and trying to defend it. So they're going to have to uncomfortably defend Mike Johnson, while also awkwardly trying to defend, right? While also trying to defend Trump. So like they're going to be bending themselves over into like pretzels to try to do that. It's going to be fucking wild. But the death of a political party usually is fucking wild. So here we are.
Yeah. Monitoring gay porn sites with his. The funniest thing about that app is that like if the app uncovers something suspicious, it'll send you like a blurred image, and then you have the option to like unblur the image to analyze. So he was talking about like having to analyze these pictures, like his like blurred images of two women would come up on the report for his son's phone, so he would unblur the image so he could analyze what his son was.
Analyze. That's what the kids are calling it these days, huh?
Oh boy.
Oh yeah. Oh boy.
So anyway, just a weird guy. Oh God, who knows? So anyway, that's abortion in Ohio, issue 1. Then there's Kentucky election for governor. Andy Bashir, very popular, like kind of the only popular Democratic governor left in the South and the red states. I don't know. What's your take on this, Kathy? This looks like it might be close, actually.
Yeah, I just meant to look it up and I got distracted. But the Bashir family has been pretty popular in Kentucky for a long time. Like, wasn't his dad governor, I don't know, 20 years ago? This one, I think I'd probably go. I mean, if I had to like flip a coin on it, just the momentum everywhere else in the country with everything else, I would probably give it to Bashir. Incumbency advantage, general favoring of Democrats in these kind of off-year elections, that we've seen. And didn't Kentucky have not on this ballot right now, but like a year or two ago, an abortion something or other, or they're
Yeah, Kentucky had a similar thing to Ohio and
Mhm.
Kansas, and like those are the
Yeah.
slate of states, conservative states that kept abortion legal.
Yeah, and what I would assume, and because I haven't followed it, I'm admitting that now, but I'm gonna think that like the voters in Kentucky are at least aware that like a Republican governor would threaten that protection that they
Right,
came
right.
out to protect, right? So, um, he's got a history in the state. He's already sitting there. They're trying to protect these rights that they can see Republicans falling apart. So I would probably give it to Bashir just because of all those. If it's a dead even race, add incumbency, add, and I just see it would probably tilt to Andy
Okay.
Bashir. That's my take there.
Okay, and then there's also these races in Virginia and
Mhm.
Mississippi, which I think the Virginia one is going to be a real bellwether here in
Mhm.
this sort of like very off-year election. Bad polling for Biden and the Democrats. Virginia swing state, could go either way on this one. I think this is going to be a real bellwether for 2024.
I do too. But again, because abortion's a big issue, and I know for a fact that a lot of people have been pushing that if Republicans take the legislature with Glenn Youngkin as the governor, right, like that point blank period, we know what happens there. So if the trends of off-year elections holds true, and if abortion momentum holds true, I think Democrats will probably, and hopefully, I'm saying this with a lot of hope, trust me, will take the Virginia legislature.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, I
we'll
hope
see.
so too. I see it. I mean, again, it's one of those like it's one of those swing states. There's a lot of really progressive people in Virginia. You just got to get them out to vote. Get out the vote is huge. It's like Ohio with these off regular elections, trying to get people out to the polls. Turnout's gonna be key.
Yep.
Shout out to our buddy Jess Anderson. Crazy Mother Runner is running for Virginia legislature, actually looking pretty good. We've been following her career for a while. She was the first guest on this podcast over 2 years
Right, she
ago.
was, wasn't she?
She was thinking about running at that point, which is why we were going to have her on as our guest to talk about the Virginia legislature. She ended up dropping out of that race, deciding to run this cycle. And actually, she's kind of kicked ass. Her opponent is a jackass. I think he's a sort of a traditional sort of good old boy Virginian, but he's got a lot of skeletons in his closet that have come out.
Mhm.
So, fingers crossed for Jess. Very, very, very tough race for a Democrat to win. Very conservative area, but shout out to Jess, Crazy Mother Runner. I think she's done all she can to run a really, really tight race out there in Virginia. So we'll see what happens there.
Yeah, good luck.
Virginia won, one of the oldest districts in the country, first Virginia.
No, wild. The one I'm interested in, and this is going to seem like it's out of fucking nowhere, but it's Mississippi, right? Like,
Okay, yeah.
in what universe did I think we would be talking about a nail biter Mississippi
Is Mississippi
governor's
going to be
race?
close? I don't really know much about it.
Yeah,
So
it's like the Republican is up by 1 point with a margin of error of 4.
Wow. Okay.
And
in
it's
Mississippi.
In Mississippi, right? And that's what I'm saying. Like, in any other universe, I wouldn't be talking about this, right? But it's because the governor Reeves is the Republican guy now,
Yeah.
is just
Tate.
Tate Reeves.
Tate Reeves.
He's been tied to a lot of fucking corruption in the state,
Yeah.
right? Especially when it comes to like welfare money. Like, you remember the Brett Favre thing where Brett Favre got a bunch of welfare money to do something. I can't remember what the whole like spiel was, but like a stadium or something, right? It was a little bit of a controversy.
Oh yeah, he stole a shit ton of.
Yeah, he stole a shit ton of money.
He's stealing like SNAP money. He was stealing money from like poor kids.
Exactly. So like Mississippi is the poorest state in the country, right? They have the most people on public assistance, and Tate Reeves has been tied to many a scandal of stealing public service or like a benefit money that's supposed to go to those poor people in his state that are poor because of his policies and giving it to his rich friends, right? So if Mississippi is close, that's bad news for Republicans writ large, right? If Democrats win Mississippi, I don't care how bad the polls are for Biden, right? Like, I'm going to calm down just a little bit.
That would be pretty momentous, yes.
It would be pretty momentous, right? And like, yes, we'll get into the Biden polling in a little bit, but these elections going for Democrats should calm Democrats down, and then we can focus on like the very specific to Biden problems, which I think are very solvable with a year to campaign, So.
Oh yeah, for sure.
It's my election day take. I'll be hanging out with Steve Kornacki tonight, so just
your buddy Stevie.
He's so cute.
I'll be hanging out with the Midas guys tonight. But yeah,
well, you have smaller friends than me. Whatever, shut up.
Favre's from Mississippi. Was Tate Reeves involved in the Favre stuff? Was that like part of it? Because like, yeah, he was governor while Favre was stealing public benefits. So there must be some connection.
Kind of helps orchestrate it, right? Like, because you know, that was the thing. And if corruption is one of the major, like, it's one of the top three. I don't think it's the first, but I think one of the top three issues for Mississippi voters is government corruption. Tate Reeves is wrapped up in government corruption, and he's only up by 1 point.
Oh, I can't stand Brett Favre. I can't stand Aaron Rodgers. It's so refreshing to like watch the Green Bay Packers play without one of those guys as quarterback, because I can actually root for them now.
Yeah, my Spanish teacher was from Green Bay in high school, and the first thing she taught us how to say was "cabeza de queso," which is cheesehead.
Cheesehead. Cabeza de queso.
The only thing I really remember was it, cabeza de queso. Señora Bronchi in cabeza de queso.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, you speak Spanish really well when your teacher's name was Bronchi, right? Like
Bronchi.
Yeah.
My 3-year-old's learning Spanish. She's in Spanish immersion preschool. She'll come home and just sing the Spanish alphabet and like start talking about, you know, cows and Spanish and stuff. It's fun. Baca. So let's talk a little bit about the war in Gaza, which is not going well.
I was going to say, oh, good. On to the warm fuzzies.
Yeah, let's talk about some of the happy stuff. For a while. So, war in Gaza. We covered this. We covered the outbreak of the war on the last show. Israel has been bombing Gaza for a month now. 10,000 casualties. You know, asterisk, according to the health ministry in Gaza, which is controlled by Hamas. It's controlled by the Hamas political wing, not the Hamas militant wing, but it's kind of all the same. So, so asterisk on that number, but I don't know what it could. I mean, what could that number be? I mean, it's an incredibly dense city. If you bombed Manhattan for a month straight, night and day, and didn't let civilians leave, like how many fucking civilian casualties do you think you would have?
Exactly.
It's not exactly like an outrageous number or anything. Which, by the way, 10,000 dead population equivalent in Gaza. 10,000 dead is the equivalent to 1.6 million Americans. So if people think that like 10,000 is not that big of a deal, that would be like if somebody killed 1.6 million Americans.
10,000 is a big deal. Like, that's a lot of fucking people. Like, that's a lot of people.
So calls for a ceasefire. I don't think anybody, you know, aside from like people on the very, very far fringes, I don't think anybody is cheering for Hamas. I think everybody understands Israel's position on this. But at what point do we say, okay, 10,000 dead? There's a lot more Palestinians dead than Israelis have been killed in this. At what point do we say, look, you know, you made your point. I get it. Like, you're angry. It was a brutal assault on the Israeli people. That was absolutely evil and heinous. But let's not now commit, you know, 4 times the evil in response. So a lot of calls for ceasefire. Biden officially calling for a slowdown to increase, allowing for humanitarian aid to increase. So.
And I think that's
just crazy. It's absolutely crazy.
Yeah. And I think Biden asking for a slowdown as opposed to a ceasefire is a little bit like foreign policy semantics, because a ceasefire is like the unconditional, like, we will stop bombing. And it's hard to do that with a terrorist group who's not going to play by the rules of war. Right. So I think that's why he's calling for a whole, like, just like, we're not telling you can't, you know, do what you're doing, but we're telling you that you just fucking chill the fuck out, basically. Because they do. But onto your point about, like, we don't think anybody is supporting Hamas. I actually, in digging through all my polls, I found one that was a bit concerning, that said about 48% of 18 to 30-year-old voters, I think was the number, when asked, or do you support Israel or Hamas, said Hamas. And I think that is that speaks to a lack of education on what the issue is.
Is it they support Hamas over Israel, or that they believe that what was the language of the poll? I thought it was that they believe that they both have like equal, like both Hamas and Israel have like equal claim to being, you know, to fighting or something.
They do, but like they're basically like, you know, to put it like they're team Hamas, if you will, right? Like, to speak their language a little bit. And when I saw that, I went, And I feel like that foreign policy, we know people don't pay attention to, right? And even the people that do aren't fully informed on it. And what fucking 18, 20-year-old is like deeply invested in foreign policy? So I think what this is, and I think we're at like the most emotions running high part of it right now because it's very fresh. But like I feel like if we did a good job of explaining like what Hamas really is to these people, it's like you don't have to support Hamas to be critical of what Israel is doing right now. Like be careful like conflating like Hamas as good guy if Israel as bad guy, because that's not really a good move. And I was talking to one of my kids about it yesterday, and they kind of chime in when they see, you know, Israel dropping bombs and they know there was an attack. But I put it into perspective. I was like, let me like speak your language, right? Because they have grown up doing shooter drills, right? They're scared of gun. They're pushing for gun control in the country. And I was like, imagine you're going to Burning Man, right? And you and your friends are just fucking chilling, dancing, doing what you do. And I used these exact words, right, to kind of convey exactly what happened. And a mass shooter shows up and kills 1,400 people. And when I used those actual words, I saw their face go, oh, fuck. Yeah. Oh, fuck. It's exactly right. And that's what happens to Israel. Now, are they overreacting? From an outsider's perspective, yes, but from a person who's living with that, like in real time trauma, like look at how we responded to 9/11. We invaded 2 countries and only one of them had anything to do with it. So like emotions are running really high, and I think that's what we have to remember. But I also pointed out, I was like, we can be critical of Israel, you know, essentially committing acts of genocide against the Palestinian people, but you have to remember that Hamas's declared purpose is a genocide of the Jewish people.
Right.
And if we're talking about how, you know, trauma response behaviors, like the Jewish people knowing that Hamas is out to destroy them in like less than 100 years since somebody almost actually did, like that does fuel behavior. And we talk about like being triggered by somebody saying something on the internet because when I was 12 this happened. Okay, so if you're triggered by mean comments on the internet, what about genocide, right? Like would that trigger you a bit? And that's what we have.
Or you're just having family that still live there, you know what I mean?
Right, like, and that's what it is. I was like, you have 2 very extreme groups that are very like it's more complicated than pick a good guy is like what I really think needs to be conveyed to them. And I think like with proper education, you could probably slow down some of the really feelings on it, if that makes any sense, because foreign policy isn't as simple as we can't help Israel because us helping Israel involves 23 other countries, you know, and that all have to play into it. So emotions high. I think that's what's hurting, you know, Biden's polling numbers. I think that's what's concerning everybody right now. But what Biden's really good at, 2 things, right? He's very good at foreign policy and he's very good at retail politics. So if he can figure out a way to talk face to face with people about the real complexity of the issue. And like Jill's a teacher, she can help him put a lesson plan together, right? On how to like actually educate people on the issue so they have a better understanding. So I'm not thinking anybody's going to start siding with Israel over it, but I do think they might better understand the reluctance of America to do the things that they're being pushed to do. Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah, it is 100% a failure of education. When we don't teach this stuff at all, except like maybe in like a AP World History class or something like that. I mean, you're not going to get exposed to this stuff. And people, I don't think people understand what Hamas is compared to like what the overall like Palestinian people are and what the Free Palestine movement is. Because you're right.
Exactly.
Like, Hamas injects a sectarian element into this that is not necessarily the root of the conflict. The root of the conflict is not a sectarian. Well, I mean, it is if you go back like centuries, but the root of this is nationalism. The root of this is Arabs versus Zionist Jews for control of the land. It's not necessarily Muslims versus the Jewish faith. But Hamas does inject.
Jews lived in peace there for a long time. Right?
Yeah, they did, and you know, there's tons of Christians in that region too that are also factored into this. But the on both sides, but the the Hamas injecting the like wipe Israel off the face of the earth and killing Jewish people. I think this is why there's a disconnect, because you have Jewish people in the United States that understand that and they feel that, and that's what they're afraid of. And you have people on the other side that are pro-Palestine, maybe some pro-Hamas stuff bleeding into that. But we're not all on the same page here, because I think the bulk of the pro-Palestine movement is about ending the Israeli apartheid control of the Palestinian people and establishing a two-state solution, not about wiping Jewish people off the face of the earth. And I think there's a disconnect there.
Getting them out of the West Bank, it's like giving them control. It's like, let us control our own lands. That's the heart of the real conflict, but that is not what Hamas is.
There's another there's the West Bank that's sitting there, which is actually where most of the Palestinians live, and East Jerusalem, and they're protesting. Like, don't get me wrong, like the Palestinians in that part of the country are not thrilled about this, but you also have a boss, Mahmoud Abbas, who's the leader of the West Bank Palestinians. We talked about this last time, but the leader of the West Bank Palestinians, like meeting with Biden, talking with, maintaining that the West Bank is not involved in the Hamas conflict. So you have like, it's not even just that, not all of Gaza is Hamas. You have this entire other part of Palestine that has nothing to do with Hamas, with a different government, historically rivaled Hamas. So it's just, you have a lot of split in that conflict over this. It's not all just, Hamas wanting to commit, Holocaust 2.0. That's not what the entire conflict is about.
Correct.
And I think you're right. I think the students that are like on team Hamas are on team Palestine. They just don't
understand. Right?
They don't know how to word that, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, and that's what I think it is. And that's why, like, you see everybody freaking out, and like, not everybody, but the Marjorie Taylor Greens of Congress, like, oh, all of these pro Hamas, because she's equally ignorant, right? Like, and she should fucking know better. She's in Congress,
the right is ignorant of it too. Like, absolutely.
And that's the thing. It's like the kids are conflating them in their head, because the right in their ignorance is conflating them in their head. And Palestine is not Hamas, and Hamas is not Palestine. And that needs to be made more clear, because when that is clear, I think it's easier to understand this conflict. And it's still terrible. It's still fucking awful. And we still need to do something, right? But
and if you're a person who like feels passionate for the Palestinians and you're in the Free Palestine movement, like, you don't want Hamas in control of the Palestinians. Hamas
they don't want them in control either.
Hamas are not good to the Palestinian people. They're not. Hamas doesn't exactly have like a stellar human rights record with its own people. Not to mention the Israelis. So we've got to be working toward, and this is what Biden keeps talking about. And it's just it's just not clicking with people. It's like, we got to be working towards a two-state solution, but a two-state solution with a democratic Palestine, democratic government of Palestine, a functioning society for Palestinians, not a two-state solution with Hamas in control. It's just not going to work.
And like I said, I wouldn't be surprised if Biden's not already, like, the way he does, like, low key behind the scenes, not in the public eye, working with I can never remember his name, the West Bank guy. You always
Mahmoud Abbas.
There you go.
Abbas.
Like, I can see probably wheelings and dealings happening there, because we know Biden, no fan of Netanyahu, right? Like, none at all.
I don't think Netanyahu is going to make it much longer. I think he's going to be forced to resign.
I think so too.
Israelis are none too pleased with him.
And that's the other thing that I don't think is getting enough attention, right? Like, everyone's mad at Israel, finger quote, but you're not really mad at Israel. You're mad at Netanyahu's government, right? Because even the Israeli people are mad at Netanyahu's government. And I feel like, again, if we understood that more, it's easier to understand why America is supporting Israel, finger quote, right? Because it's the Israeli people and the idea of democratic government in the region that we support.
Right.
We're just stuck with Netanyahu right now because reasons.
Who is not a Democrat, small d. He's not a democratic person. He's a
fucking fascist. I'm gonna go ahead.
He's a fascist. He doesn't believe in democracy. He doesn't believe in rule of law. He is a strong man. He's a wannabe strong man. And he sets his own, he's had a corrupt fucking career, and he kind of has his own agenda and what he wants to accomplish. Yeah. And right now, what he wants to accomplish is basically wiping Gaza off the face of the map, which is why I don't think, back to the ceasefire stuff, I don't think it's bad to say, okay, whoa, buddy, like, let's take it easy. I don't know that this is necessarily in the best interest of Israel, what they're doing right now. And it's weird that as Americans, we can have like a wise perspective on this because of our experience with 9/11. It's really weird to be as an American on the sort of the side of wisdom for anything. But I think if you look at the history of what happened after 9/11, you're not going to destroy Hamas. I mean, we are the people who just spent fucking 20 years and $2 trillion or some fucking number, that might even be low, trying to destroy the Taliban, and the Taliban is still in control of Afghanistan. So you can't sit here and be like, yes, this is a war on terror. This is a war on Hamas. And not like, if you're an intelligent American, you have to fucking cringe at that because you're not going to destroy Hamas. Every single bomb that kills a Hamas fighter, Hamas terrorist, is creating 3 more, because you're also, every time you drop a bomb, you're killing children, you're killing families. Everybody that survives that family is, you know what they're doing the next fucking day? They're signing up for Hamas. So this idea that you're going to destroy terrorism with violence is like, can we please just get away from that? Like,
I know, like, how did we end up back in 2004? Like, how the fuck did that happen? Like, what the fuck, yo, what the fuck? But
we killed everybody in the original Taliban, but the Taliban is still in control of Afghanistan. Like, it's not like
they just got new people.
Yeah.
Because war and poverty creates violence. It doesn't like get rid of it. But to the point of like what Netanyahu is and his level of corruption, like to kind of put into perspective for people, like I keep going back a little bit to elections, but like Netanyahu is running Israel the way Trump will run America if he gets back.
Yeah.
Okay. And like, if you think Netanyahu is bad and evil and what he's doing, just know that, and he's already saying it out loud, like Donald Trump will disband the government. He will ally with extremists and he will use force to squash opposition and will lay waste to his perceived enemies. And that is what Netanyahu is doing. And that is what Donald Trump would do. So if you support Palestine, you got to focus a little bit on what you're doing here as well, because
yeah. The other thing I want to say on the ceasefire is everybody's like, oh, a ceasefire would be surrendering to Hamas. It would give Hamas a chance to like regroup and catch up. Not really. I mean, it's not like if you a ceasefire, you're still they still have the fucking country surrounded with tanks. Like you've still locked the situation down. You know, a ceasefire is not okay. Yeah, Hamas might counterattack, but they're going to do that anyway. You're not reverting back to October 6th where you had zero security in southern Israel. That's a whole other issue that Netanyahu has to deal with. It's not like a ceasefire means pulling all your people back and go, you know, and just letting Hamas take territory. You're still in a position to fight. You're just taking a few days off of the bombing so they can get some humanitarian effort in there. And my question is, why can't they do Munich 2.0? Again, you're never going to bomb Hamas into submission. Why can't they do what they did in the 70s after the Munich situation? Why can't they just fucking hunt down the people who are responsible and wipe them out? The leadership of Hamas is not in Gaza. The leadership of Hamas is overseas in other countries. They're in Qatar. They're in like other countries in the Middle East.
And that's probably
the people that planned this are not in Gaza facing the bombs. And the fucked up thing about that is Netanyahu knows that. He's not
Netanyahu does in fact know that. But he also knows that he can't just start going into other countries, right? So that's what he's doing. He's exploiting a political moment to do what he's wanted to do for 20 years, which is lay waste to Gaza. So he knows he's not going to accomplish his goal, but he's accomplishing the goal that he wants because he just hates Hamas, right? He's got a personal vendetta because wasn't his brother killed in a terror attack or something like a million years ago or something?
He's got a lot of issues.
Yeah, and it's the same way at W. The only reason we went into Iraq is because Saddam Hussein tried to assassinate his dad. So he exploited a political moment to get into Iraq. And that's what Netanyahu is doing right now. He's exploiting the tragedy of October 7th to lay waste to people he has wanted to lay waste to for as long as I can remember.
Yeah.
And it sucks.
I just think there's smarter ways to do it, man.
There are definitely smarter ways to do it.
I don't want to don't tell me about like, you know, Israel has no choice, but like,
yes, they do.
Yes, they're going to respond. They don't have a choice about like not responding, but they have a wide variety of choices of how they respond, and
they don't have to bomb
somewhat of the worst way to respond to this, you know.
Exactly. But
you know, like, yes, Hamas use people as human shields. Yes, they put their bases you know, underneath hospitals and mosques. Yes, they're terrible people. We get that. You also have the choice to not actually go in and fucking, you know, bomb those places, knowing that civilians are going to die. Like you could, you know, you can figure out, you have like this, Israel has like the 6th most powerful military in the world. You don't think they could figure out a way to like infiltrate the, you know, I don't know. It's just,
can't we let them borrow some of our really cool drones so they can, like, you know, go drone attack specific places?
All I'm saying is they seem to be choosing the high civilian cost option. Which
they do, in fact. And that needs to be, you know, addressed.
Still going on right now. Rashida Tlaib censorship in the House of Representatives. This is the second time this has happened. This is Marjorie Taylor Greene's resolution to censor Rashida Tlaib. And the interesting thing about this is, Rashida Tlaib has said some things that would, about Israel that would kind of make your raise your eyebrows. But the fact that they have Marjorie Taylor Greene, who's the fucking most anti-Semitic member of Congress, trying to censor somebody over anti-Semitism, just indicates how unserious the Republicans are.
And dissent is supposed to be something that we protect in a democracy. So if we're arguing that we're defending Israel so that we can defend democracy in that region of the world, it's going to get harder for them to defend, one, their lack of support for democracy domestically, but also you want a quiet dissent. The whole point of a free democratic society is that you can in fact speak freely and critically of your government. So it says something that the first time somebody does, you are like, no, we're going to kick you out and shut you up forever. So, way to show your hands there, Marge.
Well, the initial one lost. She tried to censure, saying that Tlaib was leading an insurrection, which was a peaceful sit-in, not even at the Capitol. It was in the Cannon office building. The Cannon office building.
I know. It's mine.
In your building. Led by two Jewish pacifist groups that were just sitting on the ground and singing. Tlaib spoke at the event. She wasn't in the sit-in in the building. She was outside just making a speech. I don't know. There's indication that she was leading it. I'm sure she was aware it was going to happen. But no, that was not an insurrection. That's called petitioning the government. There's a difference between petitioning.
We can show you what an insurrection looks like, Marge, if you really want to see one.
Just completely asinine. But MTG censorship is tomorrow, Wednesday. They vote to there's a resolution brought by Representative Becca Ballot of Vermont to censure Marjorie Taylor Greene. They're going to be taking the vote on that one. The first Tlaib censorship went down in flames, and a lot of Republicans voted against it. It'd be really funny if a lot, but 20 Republicans voted against it. It'd be a lot. It'd be really funny if those same 20 Republicans voted to censure MTG. I'm just saying.
Well, the one on her failed too, didn't it? For the same, or no, it was the George Santos that they did.
Santos failed the same day as the first. Yeah, so that's another thing. We're not even really going to get into here, but Santos gets to keep his job for now. He probably will.
Like the way Raskin and I think Adam Schiff said something similar too, that we're all entitled to due process. So kicking people out of Congress is kind of a big deal. So as soon as he's guilty, we will, but we're going to let him be guilty first, which, fair.
Well, he's not going to win re-election. I do feel bad for his constituents that have to live with him for another year, but he's not going to win. He's not going to win.
Well, you know what? It's a lesson learned. You get what you vote for. So perhaps pay better attention. New York's 28th district, is that what it is?
I've always had a problem with that. I'm like, dude, you voted for him. This is the cell phone age. You couldn't fucking nobody could figure out that this guy was completely full of shit.
Right. Look at all the shit we found once he was there. You tell me you couldn't find it before? Come on now. Come on.
Yeah, people just did not fucking pay attention to that at all.
Nope.
You got to be a little bit low IQ voters, guys. Come on, you got to be a little bit sharper than that. Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about for the last 15 minutes here. Let's talk a little bit about this Biden poll. New York Times Siena poll came out earlier this week that is really bad for Joe Biden. Previous polls had the poll before this, which is another reason why this doesn't make any sense. The poll before this had Biden up by 15 points over Trump or something like that. This one basically has them statistically tied with Trump leading in basically every key swing state. And for people who are listening to audio only, we now have the top lines from this poll on the swing states. So you have Nevada +10 Trump, Arizona +5 for Trump, Pennsylvania +4 for Trump, Georgia +6 for Trump, Michigan +5 for Trump, and actually Wisconsin is +2 Biden. So you have 5 of the 6 key swing states here that are going for Donald Trump. Nevada, that +10. So here's the thing about this, Kathy. So this we talk a lot about how shitty polling is in this country. This poll is interesting because this is not the methods on this poll, and I don't know how much you've dug into to it a little bit, but the methods on this poll are not as bad as other polls have been. This is a pretty good sample size. It's almost 4,000 respondents, likely voters. lot of cell phone coverage. So they're fixing the problems kind of we had with the previous polls. But there's something about this poll that just does not make sense. Some of these numbers make absolutely no sense. This plus 10 Nevada makes no sense to me. I don't know where they're finding these plus 10 people. Nevada, you know, the population centers in Nevada of Las Vegas and Reno are trending more blue. I'm not, some of these numbers just don't make a ton of sense to me. So I don't know. It's looking really bad. So let's look at some of these other numbers real quick here. So you have, so again, some of these cross tab datas. This looks fairly normal. Okay. So this is like, who are you voting for? You know, Trump or Biden. So the top line is Biden. The second line is Trump. So if you look at like the party ID, you have 88% of Dems voting for Biden versus 7% for Trump. And then it's like basically the reverse. You have 5% of Republicans voting for Biden and 91% for Trump. That all looks fairly normal. But then you get into some of this age stuff and you look at this, it's the 18 to 29 year olds. You have 47 to 46. You have Biden with a single point advantage over Donald Trump in the 18 to 29 year old demographic. That makes absolutely no fucking sense to me. Democrats won that demographic by 36 points in 2022, the Gen Z demographic. And then you look at 65 plus and you have, they're tied at 46 to 46. So that doesn't make sense either. The 65 plus have always been roundly for Donald Trump, up like 20 points for Donald Trump. Here you have them tied at 46. So I don't know. It's something about this just does not make a ton of sense to me. I don't know what your initial thoughts are.
Oh, I have thoughts. Oh, I have lots of thoughts. I have tons of thoughts. And I also want to say that a lot of my thoughts are born out of the fact that I really understand Gen Z, right? Like I just really do. So to the broader point, right? Like why this poll looks weird is that we pay attention to politics a lot. So we know how fucking crazy Donald Trump has been, but most people don't. Like average Joe America doesn't really pay that much attention. And if you're an average Joe America that doesn't really follow politics until you have to for elections, in your version of reality, Donald Trump has been quiet, right? Because like, he's not on Twitter. He's on Truth Social. Most average people are not on Truth Social, right? That's where all of his crazy, like super fanatical fans go. So if you're not frequently seeing the things he's truthing, right? You just think he's like gone quiet. He's just hanging out at Mar-a-Lago. You'll hear about the different trials, but you're not really paying attention to them. He hasn't been convicted of anything yet. So it's just all kind of fodder right now. It's just noise that you're not really paying attention to because you don't really care, right? Whereas, you know, the things that are impacting people's attitudes toward Biden, he's the one everybody's hearing about. He's the one that's in office, right? The president gets all the credit for the good things, whether it's him or not, and all the shit for things that are bad, whether it's his fault or not, right? So I feel like a little bit of this is that Biden is present in everybody's mind and they're frustrated about things. So they're going to, you know, respond negatively to Biden, and that Trump is sort of an afterthought in their head because he's not in their face all of the time. So it's a little bit like, yeah, you know what? Fine. It was better with Trump, but was it really, honey? Like, was it? And I feel like once the campaign actually starts going, like Donald Trump's been missing from the GOP debates, right? So we've gotten to make fun of Ron DeSantis. We get to make fun of Ramaswamy, and Trump has wisely not doing those debates has kept him kind of quiet. So people have been able to kind of forget a little bit, and Americans are quick to fucking forget things, right? Like they love to fucking forget. So it's not as present in their mind. So I think once they have to start listening to him again, I feel like those numbers might, you know, pan out a little bit. But also, I think there's a little bit of the opposite of the 9/11 effect. You remember how George W. Bush was elected in one of the closest, most controversial elections of modern history. It went to the Supreme Court, right? Like 537 individual votes in Florida. He was not popular. Remember, they threw tomatoes at him at his inaugural parade, right? Like, so not a super popular president. And after September 11th, his approval rating hit what, like 82% because of the way like we rally together. So I think the Israel thing plus, you know, inflation, like inflation's come down, but the prices haven't because they're not going to. And all of that is still very present in people's heads. So I think it's the opposite. Like the negative version of that is that people are really ascribing a lot of that to Biden, and his numbers are artificially down because of those attitudes. Does that kind of make sense?
Totally.
And with the kids. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah. Well, and and then you have, you know, the kids are mad at Biden over the Israel thing. But the economic numbers, this is not going to get better. There's such a disconnect. By the numbers, the economy is doing very, very strong. We just had 4.9% GDP growth.
I know.
Unemployment has been under that, which is huge. Unemployment has been under 4% for 22 months straight. We've had 34 consecutive months of job growth. Like by the numbers, this economy is actually thriving. We have the lowest inflation rate in the G7 in the developed world, but people are not seeing that because gas prices are still high and grocery costs are still high. This is a capitalism problem. And unfortunately, Joe Biden is getting blamed for that, and the perception of the economy is just in the toilet with Biden. So it's unfair, but this is the type of thing that just kills incumbent politicians when prices are just too high. You know, it's got nothing to do with any of Biden's policies. But you're just for some reason Americans are just not convinced that the economy is doing better.
And it remains perplexing to me because, like, my entire life, like, the data is very clear. The economy does better under Democratic presidents. I'm pretty sure Donald Trump himself said that. I can find the clip for you, right? And they just do. But in America's minds, Republicans are better on the economy. And I don't know. Like, the cognitive dissonance is real on that one. It drives me nuts. But I also think a lot of the economy is doing so well now. And when I teach economics, I always say this: there's a lag period from economic policy to economic impact of policy, which is anywhere from minimum of 6 months, maximum of 18 months before you actually start to see like the real economic impact of that. And we're starting to see the economic impact of the Biden policies right now, which is why you're seeing the surge in growth, why you're seeing inflation stabilizing, why you're seeing job growth, all of those things. So another year from now, those economic policies will have made things better. So the economic picture today doesn't necessarily tell you what the economic picture will look like this time next year, right? Or even like next summer, right? So that's important to keep in mind. But with the kids, the 18 to 29-year-old crowd, remember they're a bunch of fucking trolls, okay? I love these kids, I really do, but Gen Z is a generation of trolls. They very much are. So can I see them? Because if you go through the poll, right, like, initially in that age group, it was, who do you support, Biden or Trump? Neither, right? It was when it was like, no, if you had to pick somebody, who would you pick? And a lot of it was, fine, I'll pick Trump. And I feel like that's a little bit their way of conveying their frustrations to Democrats. Like, this is what we're willing to do if you don't do what we want you to do. We know you need our vote. We know the power of our vote. So what if we vote for Trump, huh? What are you going to do about it? I read that poll. I read 18 to 29-year-olds leaning toward Trump as, what are you going to do? I'm not touching you. Like, that's what it is. That's what it is.
This crosstab that I have on the screen now. So this is if Biden is not running, Biden does not run. The top line here is, for sure we'll vote for any Democrat. The second line is, we'll probably vote for any Democrat. So for party ID, you have Democrats 71% say if Biden is not running, they will for sure vote for a Democrat. 20% probably vote for a Democrat. And then the bottom is like 3% likely for a Republican, or maybe a Republican. And then the one below that that's not on here is like definitely a Republican, and it's like less than 1% or whatever. So you do still have, so I don't know if that indicates that like Biden is the problem, but you do still have people, you just still have Democrats that want nothing to do with Trump, nothing to do with the Republican Party, even if they're not like in love with Biden at this point.
Yeah, like that. There's that, and one other thing that I think are the positives to take out of this poll, if you're looking for positives as a Democrat, right, if they're saying that they'll for sure vote for a Democrat if it's not Biden, right? Just kind of shows their current frustrations. So to me, that says that when it comes down to it, when you're in that voting booth a year from now, if your choice is Biden or Trump, you know what you get with Donald Trump and you know what you get with Biden. And you might not be happy with Biden, but if it came down to it, at the end of the day, right, what are you going to do? I do think they're going to lean to Biden, right? The same way they did in 2020. It was,
yeah.
They weren't happy about it, but they did it because they knew they had to. And I'm pretty sure those same group of people will know the same now. Like, this is their way of trying to make it better. But if they can't, like, I feel like they'll play along. But the other thing that was really important in that poll is that a lot of the people that like said, oh, yeah, I'll vote for Donald Trump, or I'd consider voting for Donald Trump, that changes big time if he's convicted of a crime. So they say if Donald Trump is found to be guilty of, you know, whatever charge, would a criminal conviction change your willingness to vote for them? And like that swings it like 4 points, which puts Biden ahead in every demographic, in every category, in every swing state.
Well, you know what's weird about this is, and let me go through some numbers that I didn't screen grab here. But the interesting thing about that is that Biden does lead in, if you look at college education and race. So Biden leads in every category except white, non-college educated, where Trump just has a huge lead. So basically Trump is making and then so Biden wins in white college educated, minority or non-white college educated, and non-white non-college educated. Biden wins all those, but Trump's lead is so big in white non-college that he basically makes up the gap. So essentially it ends up that the numbers are tied. But let me go through some of these other like weird fucking numbers that just don't make any sense. This to me, if this, because once again, the methodology on this polling is actually pretty solid.
Yeah, it's actually a pretty good poll.
I don't know, like, who the fuck were the people, the respondents to this poll, because some of this is just stupid. This just screams like low IQ voter in this poll. This question, again, not on the screen. I didn't screen grab everything, but here, Joe Biden. This question: Joe Biden is just too old to be an effective president. 47% strongly agree. So Biden's at too old to be an effective president at 47%. The next question: Donald Trump is too old to be an effective president. Strongly agree. 18%. Trump is 3 years younger than Biden. In this poll, you have 47% saying that Biden is too old. 18% saying, and this is strongly. Here, let's look at the nets here. So net agree that Biden is too old. 71%. Net agree that Trump is too old. 39%. They're the exact same fucking age. Like, what the fuck is wrong with these people?
Well, part of that is one, again, Biden is in their face, so they get to see like the current,
100% that.
Yeah, the current status of Joe Biden, right? And when he's talking more, like, you can tell he's old, but you can also tell he knows what he's doing, right? And Donald Trump, again, they haven't seen him, and those of us who have know he's not doing great. Right. So once he is out on the campaign trail and has to have people paying attention to them, and they actually see the state of his mental faculties, that those numbers might change. Right. Like they might. Plus, the media narrative has been focused on Biden's age, and the media narrative around Trump hasn't been his age. It's been how fucking crazy he is. Right. So like there's bigger problems with Trump than his age, I guess.
Okay, so on the crazy question, Joe Biden's mental sharpness to be an effective president. No, 62%. Trump's mental acute. Oh, here you go. Trump's mental sharpness. Do you think that Trump is not mental, or so? No, Trump does not have the mental sharpness to be president. 44%. So again, this poll says that people think that Trump is more mentally aware than Biden is, or mentally sharp, I guess is the language of this poll, which doesn't make any fucking sense to me. I don't understand it. Here's the other one. Do you think Biden's policies have helped you or hurt you? Helped 35% to hurt 53%. Do you think Trump's policies have helped you or hurt you? Helped 51 to 34. So it's like a 20-point swing here, saying that Biden has hurt me, Trump helped me. That to me just screams we're a year out from the election and everybody just hates the incumbent president. Like that's all that number makes absolutely no sense. That all that tells me is that we're a year out from the election, and this poll means absolutely nothing.
Yeah. Well, what this poll tells me is, like, if I was running Biden's campaign, this poll would tell me how to set up my campaign, right? I know what I need to focus on. I know what I need to talk about. I know where I need to, like, inspire hope and stuff like that. So I feel like it's a very good poll for those purposes. But I read this as, people are pissed off, Mr. Biden. Let's kind of put some fires out, because there's nothing in this poll that's unfixable. I don't think.
Well, yeah. Here's the capper of all this. So you just had Trump beating Biden by 20 points in the, like, whose policies are better for me thing. This is that, like, 3 questions down. If Donald Trump won the election, do you think it would be good for America or bad for America? You have a net of 20% saying good, very good, or somewhat good, and you have a net of 46% saying somewhat bad or very bad. So, like, 2 questions later, after they say that Trump's policies are better than Biden's policies, you have a massive portion of people saying that Donald Trump's election would be bad for America. So I don't know. It just these numbers are just fucking weird.
That's why, to me, I think people are using polls as protests.
They are. It's just fucked up. It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, to me, this is their way of conveying to Democrats we're not happy, right?
Right.
And a little bit threatening them, if you will. Like, I don't think they'd actually vote for Trump, but it's their way of kind of saying, like, Trump will win if we don't vote, and we're not really excited to vote for you yet. Like, that's how I read this, is that people are trying to convey their frustrations clearly, and I think they have. Because at the end of the day, you can't say that you're gonna vote for Trump over Biden and then acknowledge that Trump will destroy the world. Your claim to vote for Trump there is definitely you trolling. Like there's no other way to interpret that, to me anyway. And for what it's worth, some people think I'm smart. I don't know.
It's a year out from the election. Incumbent presidents are always unpopular at this period. Obama was pretty unpopular at this period. I just think this, the polling industrial complex in this country is baffling. Polling is the only thing that's keeping Donald Trump's chances alive, and it's dumbass polls like this with apparently dumbass people who are just angry at Biden, angry at government, angry at the Democrats, and they just, like you said, it's protest polling. But again, it's a year out. These polls mean this far out. This poll means absolutely nothing. A month out from the election, those numbers could change. So it's interesting. But everybody on the Democratic side, everybody in the Biden camp is reeling. You have David Axelrod suggesting that Biden should step down. And it just pisses me off. These people take one poll and it just defines the political landscape until the next poll comes out. So.
Yeah. And to me, and we'll get into this more next time because we're almost out of time today. But Democrats have a history of shooting themselves in the foot when they spook themselves on a candidate early. They did it with LBJ. They did it with Carter. And LBJ got them Nixon and Carter got them Reagan. So Biden will get you another Trump, and that's game over, right? You don't survive Nixon, Reagan, and Trump twice, right? And I'm just saying, I'm just throwing that out there. See where it lands.
And for the young people who are like nose on Biden over the Israel-Palestine war, you don't want to know what Trump would do to the Palestinians if he was.
He said it. He's basically would lay waste.
There would be no more
destroy Gaza. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
he'd go after the entire Muslim world if you let him, right? So just throwing that out there.
Speaking of World War III, we are just about out of time. Thank you so much, Kathy, for a great conversation. Just the two of us. We don't have a threesome yet. We're working on putting together a threesome. But stay tuned for that. So we will have frequent third people on here, frequent thirds, guest hosts from TikTok, Instagram, other podcasts that we like. Some good people. To stick around. This is a period of transition for the podcast, but it actually ended up being very, very good for this show. Thank you so much to everybody who's stuck with us thus far into our 100th episode and beyond. Check us out on Patreon. Subscribe, $5 a month. Just buy less coffee on Patreon. You can get access to behind the scenes content, merch, extra goodies that the general public doesn't get. If you want to see the video episodes, head on over to YouTube. We do have our own YouTube channel now, Just Buy Less Coffee on YouTube. You can see the video content. We're moving video content over there. We might get back to doing the occasional live episode. For now, it's going to be mostly recorded content. So check out the recorded video episodes there on YouTube if you want to see our pretty faces. Otherwise, for audio only, you can listen to the audio versions of the podcast wherever you get your podcast, Apple, Google, Spotify. Make sure you're clicking that download button to support the show. Kathy, thank you so much. It's really good to see you, and we will see everybody next time. You've been listening to Just Buy Less Coffee, answering the deeper questions of American politics, featuring Troy Matthews at Keep Troy Blue, Kathy Cannon at Cannon's Fodder, and Irene Polton at Pollution. Studio time, audio, and visual provided by Tahoe Production House. Follow us on TikTok and Instagram. All opinions are our own.